be, always gonna be, always gonna be most likely to stop!
Welcome back to Rapture, everyone. When we last left Jack, he self-injected himself with a plasmid, was knocked unconscious, then remained perfectly unharmed as several of Rapture's more dangerous creatures materialized into the room and swiftly ignored his unconscious self. When we awake, we find out that the numerous near-death experiences was all worthwhile because we've gained the ability to shoot lightning from our hands. And the game has conveniently revived us with our crosshair aimed less than a few dozen pixels at the thing we need to shoot in order to progress. Level 1 Lightning Bolt is used primarily for stunning enemies and disabling machines so that we can hack them. Outside of combat, most of the plasmids don't have much utility use beyond opening a few doors, like this one. Something else to note in this room regarding plasmids is this sign right here, advertising a teleportation plasmid. Bioshock doesn't contain a teleportation plasmid. So what is this advertisement then? Just an empty piece of decoration? Actually, it's something rather more depressing. If you watch the Hunting the Big Daddy video that came out before Bioshock's release, you can see the teleportation plasmid being used. It was coded and was intended on being included in the final release, but the development team were forced to remove the plasmid because it allowed players to wreak havoc on scripted events within the game. It's not surprising, really. As a cinematic game, Bioshock relies on careful control and manipulation of the player and the level in order to deliver the full cinematic experience of its scripted set pieces and events. A player that can move outside of these controls is simply going to create problems. Still, probably would have been nice to have. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the architecture of Rapture. Now, full disclosure, I'm no architect, but I have been in buildings a few times in my life, and the layout of Rapture doesn't make sense. As I said before, Rapture has been designed as a cinematic backdrop for the game's other cinematic elements. That's why the bathysphere opens facing a wall with large windows, so you can see you're under the ocean. That's why there's an elevated area here in the lounge, to set Jack up for his fall, even though an area like this serves no logical in-universe purpose. That's why the entrance and exit to the terminal room has narrow doorways with rising staircases, to frame a shot at a low angle to make things appear more intimidating. Even though it means that the baggage trolleys in this room are practically useless, since they can't be used to wheel things up the stairs. Maybe it's an objectivist joke to play on the new arrivals. Complimentary baggage trolley, sir? Oh, psych! Complimentary things are charity, and we don't do that shit here. We put stairs in especially to make sure you carry your bags with the sweat of your own brow, you freeloading parasite. Then there's the underwater walkways that connect to various structures in Rapture. This design doesn't seem very sturdy. When structures need to hold up under a large amount of stress, like the high pressure environment under the ocean, a circular design is used to evenly distribute the load. The walkways in Rapture look like skywalks between buildings up on the surface. It makes the place feel more scenic and less real, which is a shame, because a heavier reinforced design could have made the place feel darker and given it a sense of pressure and claustrophobia. You know, since you're under the ocean and all. Which reminds me, this isn't the only problem Bioshock has with establishing tone and a sense of place. On the one hand, the game seems to be trying to establish a sense of fear, hostility, and dread. It's got murders, flickering lights, unreliable electronics, combustible furniture, creepy children, creepy children statues, and poltergeists. But then on the other hand, you've got big bright scenic walkways, bright open rooms, sanctions restricting molestation of unconscious people, harmless fire, PG-13 blasphemous Irishmen, and friendly whale. If I had to describe it, I'd say it was an attempt at creating a feeling of hostility without compromising on the pretty graphics and aesthetics. And while we're on the subject of establishing tone, what feelings does this set piece evoke? Let's break it down. As you walk through the doorway, the game locks your camera directly ahead to make sure you don't miss the shot. Then the plane's tail, which you've somehow managed to overtake despite all your fucking around with elevators and plasmids, crashes horizontally into the tunnel, with enough force to break cleanly into it. The sudden force and shift in pressure doesn't cause the whole tunnel to shatter or collapse, and despite going through the glass, big end first, the gap around the wreckage is only enough to let a comparatively small amount of water in. The airlock behind you is closed, sealing you inside. As you walk through the wreckage, the glass around you slowly starts to crack, but nothing happens. You can wait as long as you want. You can even hit it with the wrench and nothing will happen. If you continue, the other glass tunnel ahead of you will explode for some reason, and the airlock holding the water in the compromised tunnel will start to struggle with the pressure just as you're walking past. There's fish on the floor to remind everyone that we're under the ocean, and the airlock in front of you has decided to remain unlocked to open at your convenience, jeopardizing the rest of the city after a serious breach of structural integrity. So what has this effectively told the player? That nonsense set pieces will happen, and they'll be of no consequence? That all the hostile things being shown to you are just that, things being shown? Nothing that can actually threaten you? That you'll always be given a lifeline, and will never be put into a situation that you can't get out of? That the environment that you inhabit is no deeper than a movie set, and should be treated as such? What the hell sort of tone is this established? I think it says something about this game, that for all the set pieces and environments that show leaks and rising water, and all the broken structural elements in this underwater city, there is never a spot in the entire game where the player can die by drowning. Following our very near escape from the flooding tunnel, we're left in this small room. It appears to be another lounge room of some sort, or a kind of waiting room. Anyway, we're locked in here till some scripts execute, so we're left with nothing to do but frisk down corpses for supplies. A splicer materialises into the room, and prevents any hope of an easy ambush by running his pipe along the floor like a dickhead. Atlas then tells us about the 1-2 punch combo, which involves shocking an enemy with a lightning bolt before hitting them with a wrench. I found Bioshock's combat to be somewhat lackluster. This particular plasmid weapon combo is quite good. My only complaint is that the player has only 2 combat buttons to utilise, and instead of those being fire weapon and use plasmid, one button fires and the other toggles between gun and plasmid. It's something they fixed in Bioshock Infinite, and it makes the weapon combos much more intuitive, but here it makes the combat feel a bit unwieldy. Killing that splicer triggers the splicer on the other side of the door to open the door into the room, even though there's no control to open the airlock doors anywhere. Another narrow stairwell is used to frame our shot of some splicers fucking around with pyrotechnics for some reason. After hitting the floor, the splicer that's on fire decides that extinguishing himself, or seeking medical attention, should come second to beating the crap out of Jack, and gives chase. We now continue through this hall to a room with 6 different elevator shafts. They're now acting as a transport hub for the people of Rapture. Where does that shaft go? Anyway, despite this room being a transport hub, we're still left with only 1 elevator shaft open to us, and the fire here still doesn't hurt us. The ceiling caves in, causing the room to slowly fill with water, till it almost reaches a moderately uncomfortable knee height, and then stops. When we get on the elevator, Atlas decides to deliver some dialogue, as is customary of video game elevators. He also tells us that Adam is the lifeblood of Rapture, and that it drove everyone crazy. That's odd. For people who are supposedly driven to the point of murdering babies and friends, those splicers that came across unconscious Jack earlier seemed rather collected. I don't think I haven't noticed those clever word references. Adam and Eve. It's a clear reference to the protagonist's names from the 1973 pornographic film, The Book of Penises, Let There Be Tits. It was an adult film with a plot that tried to explore themes regarding the sociology of religion in post-modernity, mixed with scenes of gratuitous hardcore fucking. Respected critics hated it because its themes were shallow and not suited to the medium of porn, and porn lovers hated it because the plot just got in the way of the sex scenes. I find Bioshock's choice to allude to this work to be somewhat poetic.
No one will be there to see.
On the wall here we have a scary silhouette of a splicer leaning over a pram.
Mommy,
It's a nice creepy way to warn the player that there's an enemy ahead. But there's a couple of problems with this.
Mommy can't.
First, the light appears on the wall as if it were cast by a strong single-point light source, like a spotlight. Instead, it's supposed to be coming from this dull blue neon sign. Neon signs don't cast strong light, not in real life or anywhere else in the game. They project soft shadows, not strong, sharp silhouettes. The other problem with this is that Jack himself doesn't cast a shadow. That's probably something you could go through the whole game not noticing. Unless of course someone made a section specifically where shadows were cast on the wall. Now we enter the restaurant to witness yet more scripted splicer sequences. In order to get us to go downstairs, a couple of splicers have been scripted to loudly argue with each other. And the stairway frames a nice neat shot of the splicer, so you can see where it is. The splicers are arguing about Adam, although you won't find any Adam on either of them when you kill them. As a matter of fact, you don't find Adam on any of the splicers, or anywhere in Rapture, other than on the little sisters and the teddy bear gifts. For something that's supposed to be the lifeblood of Rapture, it sure seems rare. The kitchen remains inaccessible until you've killed the first splicer, and the splicer inside remains inside the kitchen instead of confronting the player. That's because while you're murdering her in the kitchen, another couple of splicers have been scripted to materialise in the pool of water around the restaurant statue. And that's so that Atlas can tell you about zapping pools of water to deal large amounts of damage to anything standing in the pool. Hang on. Why does zapping water cause damage to anyone standing in it, but zapping someone directly only causes a stun? And while we're on the subject of ambiguous lightning capabilities, why does my lightning bolt open the shorted out door in the lounge room, but not the door here? As we head back up the stairs, we destroy another splicer that has materialised in our absence. And if we look over here, we get a quick glimpse of a little sister peeking out at us from the little sister hole. Of all the scripted events that have taken place so far in this game, this is one of the few that I think has been done well. The level hasn't been laid out to directly draw our attention to it. If anything, it's something you'd likely miss unless you are taking things in slowly. The camera doesn't lock on it, there's no sounds or music or Atlas dialogue to draw your attention to it. It's just the eyes peeking out, not the whole sister, and it vanishes in a few seconds. I think this is a good example of the sort of thing you can do with scripting that can work well. It doesn't violate other established parts of the game. It makes sense that a little sister would be peering out at one of these to get a look at the outsider who just arrived in Rapture. It doesn't violate player autonomy in any way.
Look, Mr. Bubbles.
And if we hadn't had the existence and appearance of the little sisters jammed in our face earlier, it probably would have also been really creepy, and done a lot to help unnerve the player. Because Rapture is a place of lawlessness, Jack feels no guilt walking into the women's bathroom. As we do, we witness a ghost apparition in distress about being too spliced. The apparitions are later explained as being memories experienced by the user as a side effect of using recycled Adam. Wait a second. That ghost was staring above the sink like there was a mirror there. And yet there's no evidence of mirrors anywhere in the bathroom. You won't find mirrors anywhere in Rapture, because Jack is a silent protagonist that we should never see. It's the same reason there's no mirrors anywhere in the Half-Life series, though you probably never noticed. You probably wouldn't have noticed it here either, except that there's a ghost looking directly into the not-existent mirror. As we leave the bathroom, another splicer is scripted to jump out of the bathroom stall nearby. Then we walk through the men's bathroom, because for some reason, it's a thoroughfare to above the dance hall, just like the many bathrooms you encounter in everyday life. As you walk out over the dance floor, Atlas asks you to kindly lower your weapon. Being up high gives us a nice high-angle shot to make the little sister appear smaller. The bright white light and homely clothing also make the little sister look innocent.
You think that's a child?
From this angle, we also can't see that the sister is methodically stabbing a corpse with a syringe. This is revealed to us as we slowly make our way over the dance floor and descend the stairs. It would be an eerie reveal, except that, once again, we've already seen the Little Sisters, and we're already fully aware that they're macabre little fuckers.
I can see light.
A splicer walks in and makes a move towards the Little Sister. Fortunately, Atlas has told us to lower our weapons, so we're unable to intervene in this sequence, otherwise we might miss this next bit. The huge, intrusive, lumbering Big Daddy sprints in from the restaurant we just came from, that we somehow managed to miss, and deals out a heap of brutal murder on the splicer, before exiting stage right. This is the only part of the game where the Little Sister doesn't have a Big Daddy standing within a few meters, once again demonstrating that things that can happen in scripted areas can't happen in the real game. The scripted sequence complete, Jack decides on his own accord to raise his weapons again so we can leave. I guess Atlas's "would you kindly" commands leave some room for interpretation. As we leave, following the only path out from the dance room, we come across another splicer, walking along minding its own business. Oh, hey madam. You didn't happen to see a heavily armed metal behemoth run through here, carrying a little girl filled to the brim with that drug you're murderously addicted to by any chance? You can't have missed it. Wouldn't have been more than a minute ago. Evidently that Big Daddy did just disappear into thin air, because we never see it again. We continue to follow the only path available to us, which leads us down to the Rapture Metro. As we try to take the only exit, towards Neptune's bounty, Atlas suddenly panics. Ryan has found us, and is closing us off and sending splicers at us, which he can apparently control by releasing pheromones into the air supply. In order to establish Ryan's motivations as a villain, we get another set piece. Ryan locks us in a room and delivers us another monologue, clearly having confused us with some kind of government agent from the outside. So, Ryan's initial motivation for trying to kill Jack is a simple misunderstanding? Is this meant to be a rom-com or something? How is Ryan able to figure out where Jack is and has the means to send splicers after him, but doesn't know that Jack arrived by plane crash? And I know Jack is supposed to be a silent protagonist and all, but maybe it might be worth his while explaining that he just ended up here accidentally following a plane crash, and maybe offer to leave Ryan if Ryan could just point him to the nearest exit. Instead, Ryan sicks the splicers on us, and a whole trio of them start beating at the glass to get to us. Fortunately the glass is secure and the splicers don't get through, otherwise we might have had a real fight in our hands. It's not like we could just dispose of 3 melee splicers so easily. By this point in the game, they've been clearly established as being formidable opponents. Also fortunate is that Ryan decided to let the splicers work their way through the glass, instead of just opening one of the barriers trapping us in the room. That might have let the splicers in so they could actually hit us. And even as Atlas yells at us to make a run for it, if we just stand here, the game will teleport us to the next area all the same. And that's supposed to be the nerve-wracking ending of the first level. I'll end this video here. Next time we start making our way through the medical pavilion.